we have Brian's not here, he's on his way. Everyone else is here, and we also have special guests of Harry Pearson, Sal Taco, Ken Harding, and Neil Gantz.
I missed two of those. I have Eric and Ken.
All right, so you have Ken, Neil Gantz.
Is that Carol's husband?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can spell that.
And then Sal from Janney.
Oh, okay, Sal from Janney. What is Sal from Janney's last name?
Taco.
That's actually it, it's just from Janney.
I always Sal from Janney.
Madonna. Taco, T-O-C-C-O.
Thank you.
All right, and you got Harry too, right? Harry Pearson? Okay, awesome. All right. So we have roll call. Well, under citizens comments, I guess I went out of order. I already did the intro of Jen. And we're, well, actually, before we get into Sal's presentation, I just want to recognize two awesome things. Is one, the Connecticut Library Association Award of the Outstanding Librarian that Gail got, which is just unbelievable. And just it's wonderful. It's so well deserved. And I also want to really recognize your staff, especially Andrea and Janet, because they did a somewhat last minute pull together of a lot. And everyone who wrote a letter, thank you. I was unbelievably grateful not to be asked. So thank you guys. And it was so well deserved.
Well, I'm honored and humbled. I just can't believe that I'm up there with all of other really outstanding.
You see, we're not surprised at all. And then the other thing I want to point out, and I will pass this around later, but the article in the newspaper is just phenomenal. And thank you for agreeing to do that, even though I know you did not want to.
I really was hoping it's my feeling.
Yeah, I was not letting that happen. All right, so yeah, and here I'll pass it around to people. Oh, and Ellen, for the roll call, Brian's here too.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep, and Sal, whenever you're ready, if you wanna.
Sure.
You are.
So, everybody has a folder, and I'm gonna go through the folder along the way. Any questions, comments, or anything you want to interject with, please just go right ahead. I don't have a formal sort of dialogue, so we'll just go through first we'll go through the portfolio summary. This is the document that every time we get together, we review the portfolio. Now, keep in mind that a investment policy statement has been now approved. So naturally, as an outcome of that, this portfolio will have to be altered to comply with the investment policy statement. But first and foremost, let's go through the portfolio. You open up to the first page. This first page is really what we refer to as the executive summary. This is my favorite page, and quite honestly, I have a lot of clients who just periodically will ask me to send this alone to them, because it kind of just gives you everything in one snapshot. So if you look at that, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, it shows the portfolio's overall return. Since inception, again, November of 2012 was soon after I had joined Janney, and I came from Dime Bank. So that's what the importance of those dates are. So since then, average annual return of the portfolio has been about 5.77%. Year to date, the portfolio is down about 2.5%. So that gives you an idea of the overall portfolio's performance. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, it essentially shows you a rough allocation of the assets. So roughly 9.1% of the assets are in a money market. 57% is in the US stock market or US equity. 17% of the assets are in international or non-US equity. And about 16.5% is in fixed income bonds. Again, this allocation will change as a result of the implementation of the investment policy statement. The fixed income component will have to rise as a percentage of the assets to account for the implementation of the investment policy statement. Lower left-hand corner just gives you the top 10 overall holdings, purely based on the size of those holdings. Any questions thus far? The next page kind of breaks out the fact that there are 4 different accounts. There were 3. We divided out and created the Gales Ferry Library account. As you can see, that only just commenced on March 30th, so it is a very new account, as we had broken out some of the assets that were intended for the Gales Ferry Library. But again, this breaks out the performance of each account in size order. So you can see the largest account is the William Holton Memorial Fund. It shows that, year to date, it's down about 0.3%. That account at this juncture in time is managed by a manager, Schaefer Cullen, which manages a high dividend equity only portfolio and a money market. That's at least the model that we've used up until this time. Again, that will have to change as a result of the implementation of the investment policy statement. The next account is essentially the very first account that I ever started working with the library on. That was an account that originally was not supposed to be intended for my oversight for a very long period of time, as it was going to be utilized for, I believe, an expansion of the library. So when I started working with Nancy Avery on that account, she basically said, don't get too comfortable because we intend on utilizing assets, and we all know how that went about. But that account is managed by another manager called West End Advisors, and actually is compliant with the investment policy statement. It fits all of the parameters. Unlike the William Holt Memorial Fund, which is individual equity or dividend paying stocks, that's managed utilizing exchange traded funds or ETFs. But again, that account is fully compliant with the investment policy statement. Year to date, that account is down 5.6%, which is interesting because as I meet with clients and review their portfolios, with all that's going on, individual investors, organizations like this library, usually assume that the reason why their portfolio is down year to date has to do with the stock market. Believe it or not, the bond market has experienced just as much carnage year to date as the equity markets, but we all think of equity as risk and bonds as safe. Bonds do rise and fall in principal value, especially when interest rates rise, and that's what's happening right now. We have interest rates rising, which puts pressure on bonds. As I mentioned, the third account, and again, this is in size order. The third account is the newest account, it's the Gales Ferry Library, which is why you can see there's really not much history to the account. The following page, we got that fourth and final account. Again, both of these accounts are not in compliance with the newly established investment policy statement, and will have to get compliant as a result of the implementation of that. And naturally, I will work with everyone to make them compliant. That account is down 4.63% year to date. Any questions thus far? So page 5 kind of gives you a further breakdown of how the assets are allocated. It shows you, what of the equity is large companies, what of the equity is medium and small companies, what is international. Again, as a result of the investment policy statement, this will have to change. And naturally, I'll be working with you all to do that. So I don't know if there's any other questions about the performance reporting. Again, this is the same document that I will utilize every time I meet with the organization. It is customizable. Sometimes individuals and organizations will ask for certain elements added, like cash flow. How much of an account, like if you'll notice, you go to page 8, you can see how much cash flow is generated from the portfolio, roughly $29,000 a year. The portfolio generates as far as dividends and interest are concerned. There are some organizations I work with that utilize that income, that rely on that income. Again, if that is something that is important for the organization, we can sort of custom fit a portfolio that can generate more cash flow, but still remain compliant with the investment policy. I thought I would touch on Jani's sort of stable of managers. On the left-hand side, there's a document, the second to last page, second to last document. It's the advisors program document. So our advisors program essentially is a stable, I call it a stable of a lot of different money managers. And we have the ability to look within that stable of managers to determine what managers will essentially achieve the goals of the library. And again, because of the investment policy statement, we're going to need to look into that stable of managers to determine who is suitable, who will comply with the investment policy statement. One thing that was sort of discussed was the idea that it would be great if managers that were utilized for the library had what we call a tactical allocation. Tactical allocation simply means that if a manager thinks that things are going to be a little more negative going forward, maybe the manager can dial down risk, provided it stays within the investment policy statements parameters. That's what we call tactical allocation. There's also something called strategic allocation. One of the first managers we ever utilized for the library was a manager called Russell Investments. This goes way back to 2000. In fact, Russell was the manager we were using when 2008 hit. And of course, you might remember that the stock market declined by 37% that year. The issue with Russell Investments and a strategic model is that the manager will always maintain a specific stated amount of equity and a specific stated amount of bonds, let's say 60% in equity, 40% in bonds. So they're really not interjecting and saying, maybe having that much equity exposure where the market's declining so rapidly isn't prudent. Maybe we should lighten up and underweight equity. Maybe we should overweight bonds. Strategic models like Russell, or we even have Vanguard, they hold true to that allocation, and they're not really interjecting and saying, this doesn't make sense. We should probably lighten up on the equity exposure. West End Advisors, who we currently utilize, and Schaefer Cullen do have a tactical benchmark where, in a sort of a perfect world scenario where, as I always say, there's, 2 turkeys in every oven and 2 cars in every garage, they'll maintain a 65% equity allocation and 35% in fixed income. But if West End thinks that maybe things don't look so promising going forward, they will lighten up on equity and increase the bond or the fixed assets within the portfolio. That's tactical, that's West End, that's Schaefer Cullen.
So the ranges that we gave them as far as minimum, maximum equity bond, guidelines, does that give them enough flexibility to operate that way?
Yeah, West End really is sort of the poster child and how we sort of modeled, we kind of backed into the allocation because I want to maintain or hold on to West End advisors. They're really one of my favorite money managers. And so they do and will be compliant.
So what we work together to establish as a minimum and maximums is really very consistent with what they already do.
Extremely, extremely. What will have to change now is, of course, the William Holt Memorial Fund, because that's basically all equity and cash. When that account was originally gifted, I want to say it was 2016. The feeling back then was, because it was a long-term portfolio, to just have some nice high-quality dividend equity and money market probably would, be the most useful allocation for that portfolio. So it has no fixed component. It doesn't have bonds. Again, we can stick with Schaefer Cullen, and they do have a balanced model that will be compliant with the investment policy statement. What will have to change is the two small accounts, because there's really they're just basically assets that were gifted and also cash that was gifted. So there really is no portfolio per se. It's kind of just a passively held, unmanaged portfolio. In preparing for today and looking again within this stable of 75 or 80 money managers we have access to, the next manager, sort of my next favorite manager, would be American Funds, and there's information on their portfolio in here as well, and their moderate growth in income model would be the model that would comply with the investment policy statement. And that's digress. As I mentioned, we have access to roughly 75 to 80 different managers, and these different managers have different models. What's great about this platform is, regardless of the manager we use, regardless of the model we use, the library's cost of management, of active management, is 0.75%. So regardless of the model, whether we use a Schaefer Cullen, a West End, an American Fund, a Vanguard, a Russell, it's the same fee, regardless of the manager. That's one thing that we've sort of done, kind of leveled the fee, regardless of the manager. And again, my responsibility for the library is to police the managers. And if we feel over time that they're not earning their keep, we can just fire one and bring in another one with literally a hit of a button. So it's a very easy, I call it a plug and play platform. We can literally fire a manager today and a new manager's in there the next day managing the assets. And again, over time, the original portfolio that I've been overseeing for, we'll call it 15 years or so, has gone through 3 management changes. I mentioned Russell originally, then we had Lippman Gregory, and now, of course, we have West End. So over time, we do determine that some managers are just not earning their keep and should be fired, and a new one brought in. And that, again, is my responsibility to you all. I'm sorry.
So do I hear that you are sending the American Fund for the 2 smaller accounts?
That would be the suggestion. Again, to this point in time, those assets have just been gifted and then passively just sort of looked at. If you remember, pre-COVID, which seems like a lifetime ago, I had spoken and suggested the liquidation of Coca-Cola stock. And, again, it was something that needed to be decided upon, because I just can't go in and just liquidate something. But unfortunately, the decision was never made, so we still own Coca-Cola. The advantage of using an active money manager like a West End, like a Schaefer Cullen or American Funds, is that they will be actively making those investment decisions on a daily basis for the library. They'll just do it, when they think it's time to change something, lighten up on equity, get more into equity, go more into international equity. They'll do it for us, and then periodically I can provide, performance updating just to see to it that the managers are earning their fee.
And so are you recommending for the 2 larger ones, 1 for 1, like David Cullen,
Yeah, we're gonna have to, again, Schaefer Cullen has 4 models. We're currently using their high dividend equity portfolio. They have a high dividend international equity portfolio. They have a balanced model, which is still high dividend equity with bonds. And so we would actually be sticking with Schaefer Cullen, but going to their balanced model, because again, that is the model that is compliant with the investment policy statement.
so I guess what I'm getting at is, what you should do to give you direction going forward.
So again, to become compliant with the investment policy statement, we have to move from the Schaefer Cullen high dividend equity portfolio to the Schaefer Cullen balanced model. Within the William Holt Memorial Fund, the next largest account is West End. They're already compliant. We don't need to change any aspect. They also have 4 different models. We're currently using their global balance strategy. Again, it's the 2 small accounts that have never had active management, never had active oversight. And the suggestion would be is to use the American Fund's moderate growth and income portfolio. I know it was mentioned that, maybe the library wanted to utilize some aspects of that money, whether it be the income from the portfolio. Where I work with other libraries that do something similar, they traditionally will implement like a spending percentage. They'll say, okay, we're going to use 3% of that account every year, or 4%. They tend not to focus on the free cash flow or dividends, because again, based on changes that the managers are going to be making over time, the income can go up, the income can go down, depending on what they're investing in from time to time. So the income is not unpredictable, but it's not consistent. Again, the other libraries I work with will have like a spending sort of percentage. They'll say, okay, every year we're going to use 4% of that account. And at the beginning of every year, they take a snapshot of the December 31st value and say, okay, we're going to take 4% of that. And, we can monthly deposit 1/12 of that into the local bank account, however it works best. But that's traditionally how most of the libraries I work with go about utilizing assets. They tend to use a fixed percentage of the value of the account, not what the account is generating in terms of dividends and interest, because again, it can and will be inconsistent.
So if we wanted to just draw off the interest from those 2 smaller funds, we would have to wait till we establish some kind of a track record of what typical dividend payout would be for an asset allocation.
Yeah, if
use that enough.
if the library just wanted to work with the free cash flow, absolutely. I mean, we can do just that. But again, it's not going to be.
It won't be exact.
It won't be exact. It's going to be up and down depending on what American Funds is investing in. So again, you can see on this page 8, you can see what this is suggestive of is that the overall library's assets generate about $29,000 for the next year if nothing changes. Meaning the managers don't sell anything in, or let's say they just leave the portfolio unchanged for the next 12 months. That's what can be expected from all 4 accounts. But again, I could come back in a month and this could be entirely different. I can tell you it'll probably go up because again, we're currently overseeing, 9.1% of the assets is in cash. We all know what cash earns right now, 0. Whereas if we can, rebalance the portfolio to comply with the investment policy statement, the cash flow will go up because again, we're taking, some of that cash and putting it to work.
So my thought, given that this is all new, would you invested would be it, and our fiscal year goes July 1st to June 30th. So I would suggest we go through all of fiscal year 23, and then for fiscal year 24, start taking the dividends as you suggested, a percentage, in the account, from the 3 or 4 I'm not raising this year,
Okay.
but let it go through a year would be, meaningful. American funds.
Sure.
But again, this.
So, good question.
Yeah.
When these two smaller funds go into active management, will still be, we will initiate paying that 0.75%, right? For the investors.
Yep, it gets assessed quarterly.
Yeah.
So April 1st, July 1st, October 1st, January 1st, it gets assessed. Not 3 quarters every quarter.
No.
When will the investment guidelines actually go into effect? It sounds like it's not.
Yes, that's a fantastic question, and this is a compliance matter. So everybody knows or familiar with regulators. We were recently audited, as all firms on Wall Street are, by FINRA, which is our regulatory authority, and they essentially slapped us on the wrist for something called CAP reporting, Consolidated Audit Trail. And basically what Consolidated Audit Trail essentially does is it not only looks at the organization, it also looks at any interested party, authorized signers. And what we have to provide for anybody who's an authorized signer on these accounts is we have to provide their legal name, social security number, date of birth for an audit trail. We're non-compliant right now, which means these accounts are frozen. I can't even go in tomorrow and liquidate or do anything with them until we become compliant, until all of the authorized signers provide us with the necessary information to become compliant with our regulators. So that's where we stand right now. I can't even implement anything until we clear that part.
Is that in the process? We can talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Who are the authorized signers?
Gail and Ken. Gail and Ken.
Okay, so with me, really should be hold off and have it be just, okay.
Well, we're into it. I'm not just giving them my social security number. So essentially, somebody on the commission will act as the one that will direct funds. I can still handle the dime accounts. That's not an issue with compliance. So what would happen is somebody on the commission would tell Sal, you need to transfer X amount into the dime account, and then that's a trustee account or Bill Library Association, and I would then write the check for whatever utilization those funds were applied to.
Would it make sense for that to be the treasurer? I would assume. Yeah. Or,
I did not have my social security number running around in a variety of theaters. Not just the IRS, but any of the financial regulators. So, but
I'm sorry? Yes. Again, unfortunately, we have to obtain that information. It's not like it's optional. It is what happened was, again, when regulators come out for their annual audit, in this case, FINRA, which is our dominant regulator, they're, overseen by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, FINRA, and all these other regulators. Each year they look for specific things. This year they chose what they call CAT reporting or consolidated audit trail. And this goes all the way back to 9/11 and the fact that, it was determined that money was being funneled to not so stellar individuals and organizations through charities, through nonprofits. So this year, the financial regulator, FINRA, chose to look at this CAT reporting, consolidated audit trail, and make sure that anyone who's associated with a charity nonprofit we can get background information on, and that requires legal name, social security number, date of birth, legal address.
Right.
So again, this isn't, this isn't the only organization that I'm basically locked out of doing anything for now. It's multiple organizations. Unfortunately.
It makes a lot of sense, but I think that question is, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but like with other libraries you work with, who do they have as their authorized signers? So that's full signers.
Yeah, 9 times out of 9, it's the executive director and the treasurer. That's 9 times out of 9. I can't think of another organization in which I work with that doesn't have the executive director and the treasurer of the board as authorized signers. And again, for all of those individuals, we need the same information. And again, it's unfortunately unavoidable. This is the case with all firms on Wall Street. It's just that they found it. They found that we had accounts, and this affected over 1,600 accounts within my firm. So it was a lot of accounts. They were found that there was a treasurer or somebody that was linked that we just don't have any background information on.
Are you comfortable with that? Or do you want to talk offline? I mean,
The bottom line is, they already know who I am.
okay, all right, no, that's great.
I'm a troublemaker.
And I assume you can like assure us that they'll keep, else social security number where it's secure, and if we rotate directors, that they make sure they pull out, or excuse me, rotate treasurers, that they pull out the information.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. When Nancy Avery stepped back, we eliminated all of her information from the library's assets.
Okay. And so how do we get this information to you? Are you?
Yeah, we have forms, because naturally now this will have to update to reflect a new authorized signer anyway. And I can have my colleague Danny generate the necessary forms once it's determined who will be the authorized signers. To change authorized signers is just a form and a signature. It's pretty quick,
Okay.
and generally involves a third person. So it usually be like the secretary says, okay, these 2 people are the authorized signers, and they sign the form, but we don't need their information.
Are
We just need
you,
them to authorize the signers.
are you suggesting we should do it sooner, like do it now and then change it in a month, or wait until Jen starts and do it then?
It makes no difference to me. Again, it's a fairly easy process, but again, in order for us to sort of re-access and reactivate the accounts and make them compliant with the investment policy statement, we'll need that information.
Okay.
Again, whether that's,
Yeah, would you mind getting that report to us twice? Okay.
So they are still going to be able to execute telephone transfers, right?
oh, where you call and say, hey, Sal, move 5,000 from Dime Bank to Janney?
No, they can't move it from Dime Bank. They can move it from Janney to Dime,
Oh, absolutely.
and they can do that over the phone.
Yeah, as long as they're an authorized signer.
So would we be doing that from here, not going through you to do that?
You mean me?
Yeah.
No, I would not be involved. What you would do is say, 20,000 is coming in and we need it for audio visual equipment for Gales Ferry. And I would write a check, just like you do with the
So we
books.
still work with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the checking account would still be under the Bill Library Association. But this way, the commission is essentially taking over direction of the investments.
Yep.
So you would be handling what amounts, and basically saying, when it comes into the checking account, I don't think you want it sitting at Dime at 0 interest. That the new head librarian or whoever you tell me would say, just like you do, Gail, you send me an email and say we need X amount for the book and who to make it out to. So essentially, I would be acting as the provider of checks. But I still need the reports because I'm doing the tax returns. So I need those monthly reports for the status of the various accounts.
Other questions?
Just to follow up on that, just for a minute. You said the account is frozen right now, so you could not do any kind of phone transfer until the law executive.
You literally can't do anything to the accounts. Yeah, like, literally locked out of them.
Yeah.
So that's why you
Two sets of
wanted
paperwork.
it.
Great, David.
Yeah, so as soon as we get that, we get that next meeting.
You still have kind of walking around money sitting in the dime bag.
Right.
Unfortunately for the commission, the biggest chunk is locked up in that CD.
We not need it, yeah, so I don't think it's an issue,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think, don't we need to make a motion
Yeah, I was
to
gonna ask-
authorize
I
the
wasn't sure.
director and the treasurer of the commission to be authorized signatures for
The 4 accounts.
the 4 accounts. I'll make that motion.
Second, there's Ellen, just for the motion, John made the motion and Beth seconded.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need this on each of the 4 accounts or roll one.
Yeah, it's one document for all 4.
So
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Beth,
Beth, okay.
any discussion about this? Okay, so we can then go forward. Yeah. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you, sorry.
Can you read back the wording of the motion?
Sorry, what was your thought?
That we authorize the director and the treasurer of the commission be authorized signers for the 4 accounts managed by Janny.
Okay.
And it takes 2 signatures or just 1?
I thought we said one of them took 3 or third.
One by the director and one by the treasurer. Signatures.
The 2 people can act, 2 people can act on it. So either one.
Either one.
The executive director or the treasurer can call me and say, hey, Sal, perform this function. It's always better to have 2, but again, they can act independently of each other.
Now, you can, as the commission, establish criteria under which, in terms of dollar limits, where you want multiple signatures or multiple authorizations.
Over a certain amount, we both.
Okay, and just to finish it out, anyone abstain or object to the motion? All right, so it passes unanimously, Ellen.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions for Sal?
You also need a motion on
To change it to the smaller fund?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna do it under new business, but do
Okay.
you want to do it now?
That's fine, no,
No, why don't we just do it now, just because we're all on the subject. Can I get a motion to change the fund manager on the Bill Library Association, with the 2 smaller accounts, the one for Gales Ferry and,
It's on the next page.
thank you.
If you want to go.
That's right, there are 2 with the same name.
I know, that's all.
Page 3 and 4.
Yeah, they're still, wait, that's page 9, sorry.
They're both $25,000.
One says here, 30, one does not.
Yeah,
The Library Association.
there are 2 that are named the Bill Library.
Unfortunately, the building fund has that same. name.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened with.
yeah, so if you're on page 3, 1 and 3 have the same name, and on all the other pages, it's 3 and 4 have the same.
Yeah, no, there's additional clarification that everyone wants for these accounts. I mean, again, other libraries would sometimes even use like the donor's name as part of, so that they can clarify where this particular account came from. So essentially, you tell me how you want them titled on the performance report, and we can make it that way.
If I I may, in discussion with Gail, the concept was, if you look on page 9, you'll see the two small ones. I think if you add the Bill Library, you have Bill Library Association, Bill Sterry Library, you have Bill Library Association, Bill Library, because that was the criteria.
still library.
That's what-
So what?
Both libraries, all libraries.
Why don't we call
What
it?
we were talking about is it was going to be separate.
Excuse me, I think if we match it up with the investment guidelines, it's the building fund is what we're talking about for the first one, the $1.3 million one. And that would actually match the Ginny document to the investment guideline.
When you say 1.3 million, you're talking about two together.
No, that's the total amount. We're at the two talking about, you're talking
All
about
right,
the Bill Library Association for
you're right.
496, that's gonna be the West End. And correct.
The account number that ends in 774 should be something like the Bill Library Association Building Fund,
Yes,
and that would clarify.
yes.
Yeah,
Because the other one is not actually, he does like, it's not the libraries in general. And the Galesburg one was separate only because some of that really was specific to
I
Galesburg.
understood that. I thought we had separated it so that they could be carried independently.
With county care, they're separated.
I mean, the Bill Library funds would reside in one, strictly limited to Bill Library.
no,
Yeah, so,
Okay, that was my
yeah, so the
misconception.
fourth one, at least the way there was here, that small one,
Yeah,
25,000, is for ledger libraries, like full libraries.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, so Sal, so if the 774 one, if you can add dash building fund,
Yeah,
and then the 251 one, if you can add dash either library, that would actually match the, or if you even called it, and correct me if I'm wrong here. So if that 251, if that was library commission funds, either library, would that match the investment? Okay.
In some investment guidelines, we have the building fund, William Holton Memorial Fund, library commission funds, either library,
And then
library commission
commission.
fund together.
So it's that building fund one, just needs that I would fill out, maybe some license for it, just with the libraries.
We just call it the building fund.
Right, but that isn't all.
Yeah, so I think if we match the Jenny ones to the investment one, we'll all be talking the same thing and we'll be less confused which one. Yeah, exactly. All right, so with that in mind, I'm gonna ask if we can have a motion to change the management of the Library Commission Gale Start Library Fund and the Library Commission either library fund, the two smaller ones. To, thank you, American Fund. Could I get a motion for that? So Carol moved and John seconded. Okay, any discussion about that?
I don't think I have the names of the funds right. I started off writing the Bill Library Association and now I've just got the two smaller funds. Is there anywhere in the minutes or where I can read any of this? Or is there anywhere on the agenda where the motions are?
Well, no, but it's in the investment guidelines.
Okay, so yeah, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm
Right.
behind.
It's one of them is library commission funds, either library. And the other is library commission funds, Scales Ferry Library.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so any discussion? Yeah.
are we still have constraints on the code and the other?
No, we don't have any.
They're all, okay, so they could be converted to.
Change it.
Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed?
No.
Anyone opposed? Anyone
No.
abstaining? I'm sorry, Cheryl, was that you? Was that an aye or an abstain?
I'm an I. I approve.
Awesome. Okay, so I believe that actually passed unanimously, but someone correct me if I misheard that.
I have everybody as a yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, awesome. I love motions. Can you tell? All right, any other questions for Sal? Yeah.
Well, I think we need two more motions.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we change the investment advisor to the West End. To the West End group for the Bill Library Association Building Fund.
That's currently already with West End.
And, yeah, okay, so I don't have to do that.
It's the William Holton Memorial Fund, that's with Schaefer Cullen in their high dividend equity only portfolio, that we're going to the Schaefer Cullen balanced model.
So moved.
All right, Ellen, did you get that
Sorry, I'm on mute, but I have changed the investment advisor to West End for the William Holton Memorial Fund.
one? Yeah, scratch that one.
Yeah,
Um,
didn't need to change that one.
okay, we're good on that one. The,
Okay, so that was John and who?
oh yeah, can I get a second on this? No,
So the building fund is with West End, it's staying with West End.
No
The-
motion necessary.
right, the Holton one.
The Holton one
Yeah.
is with Schaefer Cullen, but in a model that's not compliant with
Right.
the investment policy statement. So we're going to move to another one of Schaefer Cullen's models being their balanced allocation.
Right, so John was making a motion for that, and if I could get a second on it.
Second.
All right, and Ralph seconded. And Ellen, do you need the motion read?
So I'm just scratching it for the William Holton Fund, it's changing the investment advisor to another fund with Schaefer Cullen so that it'll be compliant with our updated investment policy.
Yeah, so the Schaefer Cullen balanced model.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, passes unanimously, thank you.
And is there a fourth one coming?
No,
No. All right, any other questions for Sal? And thank you so much for being here.
Happy to.
Yeah.
Again, the authorized signers form, should I send them to Gail?
Yeah.
Okay.
And is it something she can just make copies, or do we need two sets of them? Because we're gonna change it in a month.
Yeah, I probably hold one back. What I'll do is I'll provide, I'll mail them to you in hard copy form for completion. And I'll also mail with it a few pre-addressed, pre-stamped envelopes to send them back in. After we get the first one turned around as soon as possible, with the other one to come when the time comes. Yeah.
Gail's already on there, right?
Gail is already on there, but again, we have to update. Apparently, all of your information was on. Yeah, so you were
No
compliant.
secrets for you.
Yeah, you were compliant.
Okay.
Now, can she move funds from Jenny into Dime if the commission needs it, or if the association, because she is compliant, or the fact that I'm not, is
The
that?
fact that you're not,
It's locked in.
it's locked in.
Okay.
But again, we'll get that form down here. So you can-
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Sal, you're welcome to stay, but I think we're
No,
we're like here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Should I do any additional, okay. You want me to leave any behind though for other
oh,
individuals?
the others, those.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the-
I'll get the upstairs.
Okay.
Oh, and so, I'll just see you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's it.
Good job.
I'm gonna run out too, because you didn't tell me the issues that I was.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here and don't blame me. We're about to make another motion. So we're actually. Really not doing what we're saying too, I'm sure that. Yeah. Yeah, we try to make it entertaining. So, actually, we're only up to approving the minutes, and I want to thank Carol. I want to thank Carol for stepping in last month to take the minutes. And if I could get a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting from March 21st. Come on, guys, we did that one well. So, okay, so Ralph moved and Carol seconded. Oh, Brian, I'm sorry, was a voice from the other end of the table. All right, any discussion about the minutes? All in favor?
Hi.
Anyone opposed? Or abstaining? You're abstaining?
Yeah, I was not.
Yeah, okay. So Ralph and Rebecca are abstaining. And Barbara. Bunch of slackers last month.
I was there for some time.
Yeah.
I just wasn't there for the whole meeting.
Okay. So yeah, so 3 abstains on that. All right. All right, so correspondence, we have the ACLB survey request that I'm gonna pass it around, and it's each board member could take a copy. Everyone's welcome to look, obviously, but if the board members could grab a copy and fill it out and return it to Gail. Yep. Okay, awesome, thank you. Then we also have the ACLB winter spring newsletter. Anything of note that we should?
It's hopefully $2 million.
You wanted something other than me begging? You emailed this to us as well, did you? Okay. It is something we should probably read. We will do that. I promise. Okay. All right, so I'm passing that around as well. I'm also gonna pass around just the New London Day article, just as it's just awesome. And Gail shared a very funny story that when she first started and did an article, they took the exact same picture. And clearly she doesn't age. So, all right, moving on, we have our treasurer's report. Well, actually, can I just pause for a second? I know what I want to do. Brian, you stepped in late, and I just wanted to introduce you to Jen. So this is Brian.
I did
not.
I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to quick intro of, you've been on the commission.
I have no idea how long I've been.
Let's go with 10 years.
Is it that long?
No,
I don't know.
10 years.
Yeah, wow, that's frightening.
Yeah. So we're all a little scared by our 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all right, so then moving on to the treasurer's report, we have Ralph, and if you want to share with us what you got.
On our first page, we have the March actual budget. This is a couple of things, the adjustments, receipts, the results, that item is flat as it should be. And then when you look at our expenditures, they're well within the budget amounts. So we are on track in that regard. The next page, treasurer's report indicates we took in $580.79, which leaves us with about $29,000. At that point, when we take out our March expenditures, which amounted to $2,318.81, our ending balance is $27,018.
33 cents. We saw some increased activity on our receipts for copies and computer printing last month. And that's I think the big change over February. I'm done. Any questions?
Figure out how we seem to make so much money on the tax sheet, but it's the best kept secret in life. All right, so no one has any questions? Budget letter? Well, thank you very much. And Gail, your penultimate report for us. Don't make me cry.
Okay. I'm scared to report the budget. Total board of the town council did not include the additional funds for budget. It gave us a chunk which will allow us to increase the minimum wage to $14 in July to meet the minimum wage going up in July, and then we can up it in January to $15. But no money for additional like this. Not too happy about that. The budget goes to a public hearing on April 25th, the town meeting on May 16th, with the referendum vote on May 17th. Changes can be made after the public hearing, but my understanding is generally they will lower the budget to not increase it.
Well, they'll listen to what people say at the public hearing and then make some adjustments. You know, they need to be made, but usually that's the adjustments.
Yeah. I don't think we could get enough people to go to the do it, unfortunately. The two grants for the CFP driver connection have been submitted and I'm waiting for the response. First from the USAC to the federal grant. Once we hear from them, the state library will forward the state grant to the award for approval. If all is approved, the installation will happen over the summer into early fall. I spoke with the line IT person and we determined the best place for the connection box to go inside the library and electrical in the basement. Next to the firebox, there's a fire alarm. The funds for the Alpha grant have all been spent and my final report is nearly complete. I'm waiting for one more receipt to come in. The cost of some of the items went up a little between the time we got the estimate and the time we actually ordered the items. But overall, everything we wanted is ordered. Instead of 2 free-standing automatic hand sanitizers, we will only be able to purchase one. And the one that makes the meal, it's portable, we can move it around. When we have programs outside or within the cleaning area or anywhere in the library, it will be useful for that. We added cases for the hotspots in the laptop, particularly in a chair for the booth room and a small table to use for the booth here for the library. The grant funds provided us the means to support digital inclusion with improved technology for the community, including better Wi-Fi connectivity outside the library, portable devices for the internet on the go, and private spaces within the library for online training, job interviews, talent appointments. For both, I received notice last week that the checks from the state library will be going out soon. We should specifically we get for non-resident usage of our library. And our check this year will be $1,243, a little bit less than we did last year. We loaned 7,683 items to non-residents, and residents borrowed 11,634 items from other libraries. On the building rooms, I don't know if you noticed in the way in, from the new roof is nearly complete. Much quieter here today than it was last week. We honestly thought they were gonna come to the ceiling. They were so loud. They did move the solar panels, changed the old fluid, and the heat tape that was along the edge, to melt the ice. With this new system of the roof, they put some kind of a liner underneath the shingles, supposed to prevent ice being from forming. So we may or may not still need the heat tape. We'll see. The new cameras have been installed to take care of 30 and a dedicated monitor now fixed with the circulation desk showing each area. This will help staff keep track of patients in the basement as well as in the children's area when the staff member is not there. Oh, and the big news. A while back, we requested a plaque for the new children's room. And I'm happy that I have one now. We went back to the university and yes, they had lost it and they rushed it for us and had it done today. So,
Thank you.
yes. Catching up on with the.
Awesome. Any questions for Gail? All right, committee reports. Friends, John.
Don't really have much to report. I think there was a friends meeting last week. Basically, they voted to have a half price sale the week before the Harvard Yale Regatta, because the rowers are around and they frequent the library, so maybe we get some action from them as well as from people, because I guess there's an effort to get the town more involved in the regatta. So save June 6th through the 11th. Make sure you visit the Bill Library, the Gascary Library to buy books, because we're not selling very many at this point. I don't know why it's slowed down so much. Like last week, we only had 3 books sold on a fiction. 3. And look at the numbers that are in the budget. It doesn't make sense. So that's my report.
All right. Any questions for John? Next, moving on to investment committee, I want to thank you guys. Just did an absolutely spectacular job of putting together the investment policy and really getting us on track for that. That's my thank you, but then your report would be more than welcome.
I have to say that Harry was.
Absolutely.
Anything?
We haven't really met, but I'm pleased with all the motions we made and
Yeah, it seems like it's very, Gail was always the holder of the knowledge, and we kept having to ask the questions, and she really got it, like, with the committee, but like, it's just really clear now, which is great. So, yeah. Yeah, and I think you do, because I would be like, I know I should go there, but, you know. All right, and then search committee, well. Yay. But I really want to thank and Barbara, you guys were wonderful to work with, and you know, Barbara, thank you so much for doing the interview, and Jen, thank you for being interviewed. You know, and just really, you know, so happy. Old business. So I don't know if this will be under, I don't know if this would be under old business or new business, but I have a question. So on I believe on the calendar, the in-person meetings next month is technically in Gales Ferry, but then here it says Bill, and I was gonna ask if we could switch it to Bill, because Cheryl, okay. So Cheryl is gonna have issues with stairs, so would everyone be okay if we change next month's meeting to be still here instead of Gales Ferry?
The other reason that is, here.
Yeah.
You have to do.
Yeah, and I hope that we can like start switching to in person, you know, hopefully the world continues to agree with us on this one. But, you know, because the hybrid's working better tonight. The first hybrid meeting we had was such an unbelievable fiasco that I said never again. It's not good. But this is going much better. Yeah, so next month's meeting will be at Bill here, 7 o'clock, May 16th. And I'm actually not gonna adjourn the meeting yet. I'm gonna do something I've never quite done, but we're gonna take a short break, and then I'm gonna actually go into executive session, so I'm gonna kick you up. But, so if I could actually get do I need a motion to go into executive session? Yeah, could I get a motion to go into executive session, or do I have to make it? Because I'll make it, and if I could get a second. Okay, Carol.
So I think we need to list the people who will be at the executive session.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah. So as far as who will be here, it will be just commission members. So if you're able to keep Ellen and Charlene.
Yep.
And then it'll be Barbara, Carol, Beth, Ralph, Brian, John, and myself. Getting all fancy.